Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're zeroing in on a country shaped kind of like a giant guitar, universally famous for the breathtaking northern lights, but honestly, it is most importantly a place of mind-bending contradictions. We're talking about Norway. Out of this freezing, rugged landscape emerges one of the wealthiest, happiest, and frankly, most fascinating societies on the entire planet. But to truly understand how totally unique this place is, we've got to start with one of its absolute strangest rules.
All right, let's just dive right in with a question that sounds completely made up. Imagine living in a place where you are legally not allowed to die. I'm serious. In the remote Norwegian archipelago of Svalbard, way up deep in the Arctic Circle, it's actually against the law to pass away. No matter how sick you get, you literally do not have permission to take your last breath on that soil. So why on earth would a government ever mandate something so bizarre?
Well, it all comes down to the ice. Back in the 1950s, scientists made this really startling discovery. Bodies buried in the local Svalbard graveyards just weren't decomposing. The extreme permafrost up there basically acts like a giant natural freezer, and that means deadly viruses and bacteria housed within those bodies are perfectly preserved. So, to prevent the accidental release of, say, an ancient plague or sparking a brand new pandemic, anyone who is nearing the end of their life is just immediately flown straight back to the mainland. Which kind of brings us to our next paradox. You might be wondering, does having massive national wealth mean a country just wastes it on luxury? Well, take a look at their prison system. Unlike the harsh, cold concrete blocks we usually think of with standard global prisons, Norwegian prisons often look more like five-star hotel rooms. I mean, inmates are given really great food, and they even get guitar lessons. Instead of ruthless punishment, the system invests heavily in luxurious rehabilitation. They're completely flipping the script on criminal justice. And speaking of flipping the script, check out this incredible historical shift. 1,000 years ago, between the 8th and 11th centuries, the ancestors of these super peaceful Norwegians were the blood-soaked, terrifying Vikings who literally made all of Europe tremble. But eventually, after the whole Viking Age faded, Norway actually turned into a very poor, very quiet society made up of struggling agricultural workers and fishermen. For centuries, they lagged way behind their neighbors like Sweden and Denmark. You know, their environment is honestly just as extreme as their history. Norway is a land of massive physical contrasts. From May to July, they experience what's called the midnight sun. The sun literally never sets. People are walking around wearing sunglasses at 3 a.m. But then, flip the calendar to November through January, may have to endure the polar night, which is months of pitch black, 24/7 darkness. Talk about an environment that demands absolute resilience. So, how exactly does this freezing, struggling nation turn into a global superpower of wealth? Well, in 1969, an absolute miracle happened. They discovered massive oil reserves in the North Sea. Just like that, boom, their destiny changed forever. They went straight from a quiet, struggling economy directly into the fast lane of global wealth. But it's what they actually chose to do next that sets them apart from pretty much every other oil-rich nation on Earth. Instead of going on a massive national shopping spree and blowing that oil money on wild luxuries, Norway did something brilliantly forward-thinking. They created a sovereign wealth fund. Today, that fund is worth well over $1 trillion. That's a lot of zeros. They invested the oil revenue to secure the future for generations to come. And because of this staggering financial foresight, technically speaking, every single Norwegian citizen is a millionaire by birthright. Now, you'd probably think a country full of millionaires would be incredibly flashy, maybe even a bit arrogant, but they handle that immense wealth through a deeply ingrained cultural code called the Law of Jante. It is essentially a code of strict humility. It lays down the rule that no individual is better, smarter, or more special than anyone else. It's the secret sauce that completely prevents wealth from spoiling their society. And this isn't just some nice philosophy on paper, it's how they actually live every single day. Social status is completely leveled across the board. Whether you're the prime minister or a local waiter, you're treated with the exact same level of respect. It's totally normal to see a billionaire commuting on the public bus or a high-ranking government minister spending their weekends scrubbing their own floors. This deep-rooted equality is basically the true foundation of their national happiness. But hey, equality isn't the only unique part of their culture. Their parenting norms are pretty shocking too. If you walk past a cafe in Norway during the winter, you might just see baby strollers parked outside in minus 10 degrees Celsius weather, with the babies fast asleep inside. Meanwhile, the moms are indoors enjoying a nice warm coffee. To an outsider, it looks completely bananas, but they firmly believe that exposing sleeping infants to that freezing fresh air builds a super robust immune system. And when those kids grow up, they get to enjoy a surprisingly quirky national diet. On the menu in almost every Norwegian household is something called brunost. It's this sweet brown cheese that actually tastes a bit like caramel. But even more surprisingly, they're absolutely obsessed with tacos. A major cultural staple is Taco Friday, where families all across the country gather at the end of the week to feast on Mexican-inspired food. Who would have guessed?
Now, when they aren't eating tacos, they're escaping. Norwegians have this beautiful concept called hytte. These are small, extremely secluded wooden cabins tucked away deep up in the mountains or out in the forests. Instead of doom scrolling on their phones all weekend, locals actively flee the city to go to their hytte. It's a very conscious, dedicated effort to ditch the internet, unplug from modern stressors, and just reconnect with nature.
But look, living in this peaceful, nature-loving utopia, it is not cheap. Norway is notoriously expensive. Buying a simple burger or even a bottle of water can cost a small fortune. And then there's the income tax. Citizens pay an average income tax rate of around 50%. So why on earth does the entire population just hand over half their salary to the government with a smile on their face?
Well, they smile because the return on investment is just unparalleled. In exchange for those really high taxes, the government provides absolute peace of mind. Every single citizen receives a world-class healthcare, entirely for free, and education, completely covered from the day you are born all the way through your university degree. The state essentially carries the heavy financial burdens of life, which frees up the citizens to focus on, well, actually living.
Which brings us to the final, and honestly, maybe the greatest paradox of the whole shebang. Out of every 10 new cars on the road in Norway today, 8 of them are fully electric vehicles. 8 out of 10. They are consistently one of the biggest global markets for companies like Tesla, showing a staggering commitment to environmental sustainability. Think about the irony here, though. It's an incredibly ironic, yet super inspiring reality. Norway, a nation that pulled itself completely out of poverty and became a trillion-dollar powerhouse entirely by extracting and selling fossil fuels, is now using that exact same wealth to fund a completely green, fossil fuel-free future. They actually plan to completely ban the sale of new petrol and diesel cars in the coming years. So, from the freezing darkness to the 24/7 midnight sun, from bloodthirsty Vikings to peaceful billionaires taking the bus, Norway is just an absolute masterclass in balance. So I'll leave you with this question. Could the Law of Jante work where you live? Do you think your society could ever embrace that strict level of humility and equality? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely let me know which fascinating country we should explore next.